Warning, this podcast contains spoilers. Warning, this podcast contains spoilers.
Let's go watch it in 2D. No, let's go watch it in 3D. But if we watch it in 3D, then is it worth the cost?
Steven Spielberg presents Back to the Future, a Robert Zemeckis film. Marty leads an ordinary life.
No McFly ever amounted to anything in the history of Hill Valley.
Yeah, well, history is going to change.
And 1985 is not his year. But Dr. Brown is about to change all that.
Are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
He's sending Marty 30 years back in time.
It works! It's a flying saucer from outer space!
Now, he's trapped in the past.
It's got to be a dream.
About to meet
Chocolate.
his future father.
He's a peeping Tom.
Wow!
And he's making an impression on his mother.
He's an absolute dream. And he can sleep in my room.
Anything you do could have serious repercussions on future events.
Now, he's got to make his mother and father fall in love.
For crying out loud, I haven't even been born yet.
And only Dr. Brown can help him get back to the future.
Are you telling me that this sucker is nuclear?
Precisely.
Michael J. Fox,
Whoa, this is heavy.
Christopher Lloyd,
There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
Back to the Future.
Hello. This is Adolf, and I have with me the Jakes.
Howdy.
Hi, everybody. So, Classic Jake and New Jake are here, as you heard. Unfortunately, Krista and Kristen are not available. I'll be getting some text messages from Kristen that I will be incorporating into this podcast. So, this is Movie Club 2, and we're talking about Back to the Future 1. You guys voted for this. And we're going to talk about it. Now, obviously, this is not a 3D movie. So, let's talk about that aspect first. Do you think this movie would look good in 3D if they re-released it and upconverted it?
No. Yeah, there's an awful lot of darks. They would have to really screw with the cinematography because there's a lot of really when Marty comes back and lands in the old field and hits the pine tree. That would look terrible. It's just way too dark.
Mm-hmm. Now, we're going to talk about spoilers. I mean, it's a 30-year-old movie. Come on.
Yeah. If you haven't seen this movie yet, stop this, watch it. We'll be here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Take a pause, put the pause button on the podcast, rewatch it. So, for me, the 3D, I think it wasn't really filmed in that way visually. I think the only scene that could have been really cool in 3D was the skateboard scene, but that really would have had to been filmed in 3D because, having those perspectives and angles could have been more fun. But that one skateboarding scene is 2 minutes in the movie,
I think the only thing that would work would be the time travel sequences when the DeLorean lights up. That's really the only time I think it would pop.
Yeah, I mean, it could have lightning or some things, but for the most part, I don't think... some movies you look at it and be like, okay, that looks like it could have been great in 3D, but they never did it.
Right.
A good example is Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Mcguire. Oh man, there's so many times in that movie where things are flying off the screen, so many things floating around, so many things in the background. Oh, it would have been gorgeous in 3D. But do you have any other examples, classic Jake, of movies that were not in 3D but actually would have worked if they'd done it in 3D?
Oh, there's all sorts of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Could you imagine that rolling ball and running from the arrows and being in the plane? Snakes!
Any of the Indiana Jones would be fantastic in 3D.
Mm-hmm. But I particularly think Raiders would look, especially so many scenes would have worked really well in 3D. At the end, when they're don't look when they're opening up the prize.
Yes.
And the melting faces.
What about the Gophers in Indy 4 though? Those would look amazing in 3D.
Yeah, I mean any of them would look great. And there's a whole bunch of other Zemeckis' movies that would look great in 3D. He's done lots of stuff in 3D, but like Romancing the Stone would have looked great in 3D.
All right, new Jake, you got any specific examples or no?
Oh, geez. Besides the original Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, maybe maybe the Schumacher Batman movies, but they're also so dark that I don't think they'd work. They're also colorful, so I can't think of any off the top of my head, really. Maybe Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to the Future. Now the story here. Marty McFly is a young boy, 16, 17, I don't know.
17.
Yeah.
He's a Hollywood 25-year-old teenager.
Yeah. And he's working with Doc. And why is a middle-aged man working with a child? Who knows?
Pedophilia.
Yeah.
The movie does start in a fun way with all these ticking clocks, and like they show you some newsreels and stuff to kind of give you some background. Be like, oh, plutonium was stolen. Oh, clocks ticking. Oh, you see that the dog isn't there. That Marty is gone. You see,
it's a great exposition dump.
Yeah, it works. I actually really like it. It's simple. It's effective. It gets you into the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if paying attention, it kind of creates some suspense too, because this plutonium that you see, this container is going to come
under the bed.
Yeah, it's going to come bite them in the ass.
Oh yeah.
They even have like a thing on the wall with they say the Doc inherited some money or something. That kind of explains why he could do these things, or there was some kind of fire or something that happened. It has enough there that you could kind of get a sense of things. And Doc is like, oh, we gotta you gotta come by, record me. I got an experiment to do at 1:00 at the mall. And he goes over there, and then they experiment, which time travel. He figures out time travel, and he sends his dog into the future 1 minute. Which is like, really? You send your dog to the future? That's kind of messed up. You should send a teddy bear.
A teddy bear. I think he needed a live test subject to see if a human could travel through time, or a living being through time.
I hate to say this, but in 1985, people just didn't give a shit about animals like they do now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the brutal truth about that moment.
I mean, they could have gone scientific and had like a mouse or a guinea pig and be like, okay, this is a scientific experiment, and people don't care that much about guinea pigs versus a dog or a cat.
Yeah. But Einstein was a cute test subject, and it worked. I'm glad it worked.
Yeah, thank God it worked.
Yeah.
So apparently Doc stole the uranium, which is kind of dates the movie, but he bought it from
Libyan national terrorists. Yes.
Yeah.
And then they come back to shoot him up, and they apparently know where the hell he's going to be at 1:00 in the morning.
Yeah, so we've got some like extras in brownface being terrorists.
Yeah, and of course, how the hell would they know where he is? That he's at that mall.
Movies got a movie, and this is also a small town, so I take it that they were just driving around. Because at the end, when they see them, you can tell they're in their little VW bug driving around.
I mean, maybe they had their lines tapped. I don't know, but go ahead.
So Marty's like, oh no, he's dead. Oh, I gotta go. I could use this to leave, and then he leaves, and then he goes back in time, and then it's like, oh, I have a time machine. I could go back and save him and warn him. But he didn't know he was going back to the 1950s, and he goes back to the 1950s and sees how things are in Hilldale back then.
Mm-hmm.
Hill Valley.
Yeah, and he makes his first big change because the mall is Twin Pines, and then when he goes back to where the mall was, he runs over one of the pine trees.
Lone Pine Mall.
Yep.
I like that kind of consistency to it. It's tight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the continuity is fantastic.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And like he appears in some barn. In the barn, you know, the whole family decides to go investigate instead of just the dad.
Yeah. The dad has a shotgun, but the kid has a comic book. The greatest defense ever.
Super convenient comic book. Oh, it's just like this comic book. See?
Yeah.
Hey, you better watch out for those paper cuts. I mean, maybe he would have bled to death.
But the guy who owns the farm, I think it's the same guy who's in Silent Night, Deadly Night as the scary grandpa. So watching Back to the Future now, I always think about that, and it's very unsettling now. I don't know if anybody's noticed that.
No.
No. No, I've just caught things like Billy Zane and
Oh yeah, with hair.
yeah, he's one of the and Casey Semesco. You know,
Yes.
they're
Biff's goons.
Yeah, Biff's goons here. Yeah, by the yeah. Tom Wilson doesn't really get to shine in this one. Biff is just a character. I mean, he's the guy you love to hate, but he really gets to shine in the sequels.
Yes, but he does a great job here as a teenager, as a 40-something, and as a meek and mild man. So
yeah,
I think he does pretty decent here.
Mm-hmm. But it's kind of tough to steal a movie from Crispin Glover.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, Crispin Glover is the glue that really makes this movie shine. His performance in this is incredible.
Yeah, he's actually controlled enough to make him really work without standing out like a sore thumb. And it's quite good job on Zemeckis' part that he managed to do that.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And one of the things that really makes this movie work is the reaction shots. So this thing is not only is the continuity tight, but they get these great reactions. They just cut to reaction, and it's perfect because you just laugh. You can't help yourself. You're gonna laugh at this movie. You're gonna chuckle. You know, this movie is a feel-good movie.
Mm-hmm.
And other actors come back and they reprise their roles as old version and young version. And I think that's an inspired choice.
Except for Crispin Glover. That's the only one they couldn't get back, and he changed Hollywood history because of that.
Yeah. Well, they also couldn't get back. Claudia Wells dropped out because her mother was sick, or grandmother. I can't remember. And
Elizabeth Shue,
yeah. But Jennifer was, if this movie has a weak spot, and it has a few, I would say the character of Jennifer.
She's fairly inconsequential in the trilogy, though.
Yeah, exactly. She shouldn't have even been in the movie. The character shouldn't have even existed.
Well, it's motivation for Marty to get back, so he has a girl, besides missing his family. But
I know, but it's just such a sexist trope. She's like a trophy.
Yeah, it just is kind of there for no point. Besides, we got to come back and look at how pretty she is, and it's just kind of whatever. It's not really. It didn't need to happen. But I like that the characters, are in the past and the future. That's what I was getting at, and that they use makeup to age them up. Makeup works pretty well. It's not as good as it could have been back then, but it's pretty damn good.
Yeah, for 85, it's fantastic.
The makeup was great at the time. It just hasn't held up. But the thing is, the reason it works even now in the movies is because the performances are so strong. I mean, Lee Thompson kills it as Lorraine.
Yes.
As the mom. I mean, when she's on the prowl for her son, the howling, I mean, it's like, oh my God.
Whoa, this is heavy.
And I'm like going.
Even seeing her drunk and 40-something when she's only 21 was quite well done.
Mm-hmm.
And, I liked how, like you said, it's a very tight script. Like, they really make it masterful on how they connect everything. Like, they tell you about the clock tower and the lightning strike. And they give you a flyer, and that flyer is what that Marty gets, which then he goes back in time with, so he has something physical to take with him. And his girlfriend does give him his phone number, which I would think he would have her phone number already. They're boyfriend and girlfriend, right?
That's for his grandma. That's for her grandmother's house. That's why she gave her the phone number.
Okay, because I was like, why wouldn't he have that already?
Yeah.
But he does have a flyer. He does take some things back in time with him, which a flyer for the lightning strike, and then a picture of his family, which is a really generic kind of weird picture, and the whole thing
The
with
Walkman.
the Walkman, and the picture, the whole thing with the picture, with the parts of them disappearing. I think that doesn't work.
It's a great running clock. I think it's just like the time. It's like it's a great reminder to be like, I got this amount of time, and if I don't do it, I'm history. So I think it's perfect for what it is.
You also have to remember this is an era of filmmaking. The most prominent time travel stories are A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court and The Time Machine. So the science, they were trying to dumb this down enough so a general audience could follow it and not get confused with all the time travel stuff.
And it works. It works wonderfully.
I think either the people disappear entirely or not at all. I don't like half of them had disappeared. What the hell does that mean? Half of them had disappeared.
It's a perfect sand timer, though. It's just like, okay, you see the sand slowly disappearing. I know that's not probably how it would really work in reality if time travel existed, but it gets the point across.
Yeah.
It gets the point across. I'm not a big fan of it. It's just like, I liked it, but now looking at it now, it's like, they could have done that a little bit better, a little bit, maybe not, like I said before, not have the half of the body disappear, have them all disappear, have, that could have been, okay, that you check the photo, and the photo, one guy is gone, the other guy is still there, or this guy is gone, and everything else is the same, and that would have been a better way of doing it without being that corny. But
okay, yeah. You have to remember Zemeckis is an effects guy. He's going to take his first choice of solving an issue in a movie is going to be using an effect to do it.
True.
But inventively.
Exactly. I mean, he's the other R&D guy in Hollywood. Cameron wasn't the only one.
No, but Zemeckis was kind of sort of the first ones to really include it into dramatic storytelling to get the effect across, and it shows that he does a great job for the most part.
Yep.
Now, one thing that's interesting about this movie is that, at least for me, I've seen it like 10, 20 times, if not more. And I've seen it a lot on TV, and it feels like on TV they took out all the cussing, which I kind of forgot about all the cussing. They say shit a ton in this movie. And it's really
surprising.
pervy. It's really pervy.
He's a peeping Tom. I mean...
Yeah, this is one of the movies that people were about the PG rating, because a movie that's similar to this that came out a year later, in some ways I think is actually, even though the screenplay isn't as good, in some ways is a better movie. Peggy Sue Got Married with Nicolas Cage and Jim Carrey, and it got a PG-13 and it has a lot less swearing.
Well, does it have like a higher sexuality though?
Yeah, I would say that it's also not. Francis Ford Coppola was also not making it as a family movie.
Yeah, it's like one of the only few times he's done that.
Yeah, well,
besides Nick Cage, but
yeah, I can remember when it came out because people were screaming he was a sellout for making this little sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
But he didn't care. He never cares.
Okay, we mentioned about the pervy aspect, and that's how that Marty goes back in time and he stops his dad from being a perv for being run over by the car, and that changes the events of history. And it's still weird. It's like, why would she be in the bedroom and have his pants off already?
She's also equally horny, so it's kind of a good, perfect counterbalance to the peeping Tom aspect. So
yeah, it's weird because like, why would she be seeing his underwear? What the hell's going on there that we didn't see before the scene?
Oh, she probably undressed him when they put him into bed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing him in his Calvin Klein underwear.
Yeah, because this is back in the days when everybody wrote their name in their underwear and on their socks and stuff.
Why would they do that?
Okay, you would do that because when you would go to camp, usually your parents, if you were of certain economic advantage, you would go to camp every summer for 2 weeks. And because washers and dryers were so expensive and to run and to use at the time, they would do everybody's laundry together. And so to keep it all straight, you would have your name.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There's a lot of little details like that about the early 60s that probably don't translate well to the to modern era because the technology has made it moot.
Okay, that's interesting because I never knew that. I was like, what the hell? Why would people write their name on underwear? I mean, okay.
That's why.
Okay.
And also, underwear used to cost a lot more than it does now.
Huh.
If you're a big person like me, it's still expensive.
Yeah.
So Marty trying to find, he talks to the old Doc, and then I love the game where it's like, you're from the future, then who's the president? And it says Ronald Reagan. And that's really funny because back then he was a D-list actor, that you would not suspect would be president. Just like if you would go back in time 25 years from today and tell someone that Trump is president, they would laugh.
Oh,
the art of the deal guy?
Oh, yeah. There's all sorts of people want to remake back to, of course, Zemeckis and Gale, the two guys who did this, writers and directors.
Two Bobs, yeah.
Yeah, they've already said, as long as they're alive, there will not be a remake of Back to the Future.
There doesn't need to be a remake because it's perfect almost as is.
But I can understand. I say, look, do what they did. Take inspiration from it and come up with your own thing. They did this because they wanted the rights to some other time travel work and they couldn't get them.
Yeah.
So they did their own thing. So do your own thing.
I mean, that's what Sam Raimi did with Darkman. He couldn't get the rights to the Shadow, so he made Darkman a better movie.
Yeah, and Star Wars because Lucas couldn't get the rights to Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers.
And
thank God.
And of course, you can say that this does inspire, which is obviously inspired because it's so obvious to anyone that knows, Rick and Morty.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, man! Yeah, pretty crazy, huh? But it doesn't matter because none of this has anything to do with the show, Morty.
Mm-hmm.
And Rick and Morty doesn't do time travel. But it's very much a similar concept. Instead of time travel, Rick has a portal gun or whatever. So they have their, spaceship and they go have their portal gun and they can do whatever. And it is weird going back and watching this after watching Rick and Morty.
Mm-hmm.
It does, but I mean, they still stand on their own merits. So, but it does kind of intertwine a tiny bit for me.
Mm-hmm.
I expected Marty to say, "Oh, geez," but he never did.
Oh, geez, Rick. His name is Emmett Brown. Damn it, not Rick.
Yeah, and Christopher Lloyd's finally grown into the part because I mean he's finally old enough now to be Doc Brown.
Yes. I mean he's like in his 80s and he's the perfect age now to be actual Doc Brown without makeup.
Yeah.
And then we mentioned him before, but I'll say it again. It's also weird to see, Biff here, which was actually, they did confirm it was inspired by Donald Trump. And it's hard, knowing the Donald Trump era and then having Biff and seeing, oh yeah, this is just like him. And it's really weird, especially going into the second movie, which we're not going to talk about right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is really weird because it so is Trump. So is Trump from the 80s,
I mean, it's kind of a stretch when he's back as a teenager in the 50s, but in the second movie, yeah, definitely, it's Trump 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to the school. Eventually, Doc and Marty go to the school and try to fix things so that way they go back. His parents go back together, and so in the school, no one ever says, "Who the hell are you? Why are you here?"
Why is there an old man with you? Who is this guy?
I guess they get away with it because they're white, but I mean, come on.
Yeah, basic, and they're male.
Don't listen to no dame. Give you a smack on the face.
But seriously though, they're in a high school and they don't belong to that high school. Why? The principal caught them and be like, "Who the hell are you? Get out of here!"
I mean, the 50s were a last time.
All campuses were a lot more open. I mean, this is a time period. I think there'd only been one major school attack in this time period.
Wasn't that at a college?
No, it was a school. It was an elementary school. A guy protesting taxes blew up a school, killing himself and a whole bunch of kids.
Jesus, that's dark.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it was only news for like 2 days. Yeah, Americans didn't obsess with shit like this. They just moved on. And then in the 40s, they had a principal get pissed off and shot up his school.
Well, that's some damn commies that McCarthy warned us about.
Yeah. So schools there weren't a lot of kids being kidnapped from schools and stuff yet. It was starting to happen. It was a couple of years after Back to the Future before they started cracking down on campuses.
I don't know. I just think in any school, if someone, especially the principal, which he seemed like he was pretty on top of it. He was right, a little bit after things happened, but he was there, walking around the halls. You would think he'd be like, "Hey, who are you? I don't know who you are."
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're there to register them, I guess, but it does kind of go like, okay, it is creepy territory a little bit, especially in hindsight. But
so they do get the whole thing with the band, and that Marty's trying to teach his dad about how to be, I guess, more confident, and like if Marty does go out with Lorraine and he's a jerk, then he could stop it from happening and then be the hero, which that part kind of is kind of dated.
Oh, well, the whole there's a lot of stuff about this movie that's dated, and some of the politics of Zemeckis and Gale come out. I mean, they're obviously Californian Republicans, but besides that, it's still a great script. I don't have to agree with the philosophy of it or anything. I mean, it's still a great script. It's still a great movie.
But Zemeckis and Gale, they're actually lifelong Democrats, and Zemeckis is from Illinois.
That's really weird, though, because the politics of this movie are so much in the Reaganites and the whole.
Well, it's because it takes place in 1985, dead center of Reaganomics, so that's probably why.
And the movie before Zemeckis made, before Back to the Future, used cars. I mean, it takes such a dig at Carter. I saw this in a theater in Atlanta, and I thought the whole audience was going to die at that Carter joke.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense because, I mean, you could be a Democrat and still not agree with your president or whatever. So, I mean, I don't know.
I just thought it was just so interesting. I mean, I really take notice when things more to the right enter a movie, because Hollywood is traditionally so. Everybody says it's so leftist, and I'm like going, really? I point to Back to the Future, and I mean it sells the capital, because I mean at the end everybody seems their success is shown by their capital, their success in their new careers as opposed to what they were doing before.
Yeah, but I mean they're much happier as people though, because Lorraine wasn't potentially raped by Biff, and George is a stronger person because he has confidence, and He was actually to, not be a meek and wallflower person.
And they also have an open relationship with each other, talking because they know Marty's going to the lake with his girlfriend Jennifer. They're open. He's not having to sneak around.
Well, I think it's because Lorraine at that point, she had been probably sexually molested or taken advantage of. And it was just like, oh, it's probably my fault because I was such hot stuff. And after that, she became an alcoholic because this isn't what my life wanted to be. I'm young with kids. And I think it's because she became more accepting because with George, it's like, okay, I could be young and young relatively, but I could be, hot stuff and sexually advanced, So.
Yeah, and when George had the epiphany, and he, with no prompting, on his own, stood up to Biff and took him out.
Well, because he knew what the right thing to do was. He had that confidence, and even if he lost, I mean, Lorraine would probably still be with him, maybe, but she would probably still be potentially violated sexually.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about some serious stuff here, and kind of, yes, it is hard to talk about this stuff. The thing is, this movie does go there, and if you if you're not paying attention, you don't see it that way. But you're absolutely right. Biff would have raped Lorraine back then.
I mean, he most certainly did in the original timeline.
Yeah,
I mean, because she's an alcoholic, she's drinking straight up vodka.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and what's even more horrifying is Biff would have gotten away with it.
Oh yeah, I mean he's gotten away with George doing his work and stuff. He's totally dominating.
And Lorraine would have been blamed for it.
Oh yeah,
it would have been seen as her fault, and that's what I've always seen. That's why she was drinking and stuff, because something horrible happened to her, and she was, and either she made sure nobody knew about it, she kept it secret, and it killed her inside, or other people did know about it and they shamed her about it.
I mean, like she's not working out in the first 15 minutes. Like, she's overweight, she's aged, she's not wearing makeup, but still Biff still kind of has the hots for her because he's like, say hi to your mom for me. So no matter what she does, she can't escape the strong arm of Biff. It's really saddening in this timeline.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's interesting when you go a little bit deeper in. Like, it really is a much, it's played off as a fun, lighthearted family movie, but it really isn't.
It's pretty dark.
There's some darkness. I mean, it's not as dark as, let's say, the second one in this trilogy.
No, I mean, they're all PG related, but they still go to some dark territory, even though it's still portrayed as light entertainment. It still has, oh my God, there's that dread that's within.
It's got some substance to it.
Yeah, it's more than just a fun little adventure. There's deepness to this, and some of it is imagining, what can you change history, and how much of it is, am I going to ruin my own history? And it's some deep stuff, and they mentioned deep a couple times, and heavy is a key word, and it is heavy. It is a heavy movie. It just, people kind of play it off because it's become pop culture, that it's a fun, lighthearted movie, but it really isn't that fun and lighthearted.
Yeah, no. I mean, the adventure stuff is still adventurous and fun, but when you start looking at the film deeper than that, then it's like, oh my God, what have I gotten into?
Yeah, and then there's some, to get it a little lighter, and is that one of the throwaway things in this movie I always liked was the political campaigns, opposed to 1960 and 1985. They're using the same bullshit tropes and statements. I mean, nothing's changed. They're still campaigning, and of course those. And 85 was about the end of when guys were driving around with the megaphones on their cars campaigning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty much only a small town would be doing that by 85.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, it kind of makes sense, even in 85, because it was the best way to get the word out besides spending money to be on TV. But in 85, I mean, like, just driving around with a loudspeaker, it's perfect. And it kind of sets the mood and the setting and the time period precisely. It's beautiful.
And like I said, it was still used in small towns.
Because Hill Valley is a small valley town. So Makes sense.
One thing that makes a lot of sense is how they use foreshadowing. It's really brilliant how many times, this is a movie you watch multiple times and you get multiple things out of it each time. Like, we do mention that Marty is in a band called the Pinheads, and he plays music that's too loud. And, we never hear about the rest of the Pinheads after this point, but whatever. That comes back when Marty does his solo routine.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
then,
and great Ramones reference there.
Marty, his mom says that he basically is a nun, when he's talking about Lorraine in the future, in the present, I guess. And then there's plutonium missing on the radio. There's a grandpa getting hit by a car. There's World Series, talk. There's a lot of these foreshadowing events that really come back around and really just make a circle. And I think having that closed loop in that universe over and over again, it just nails it. I think that's what makes it so much fun. That it's like, hey, they got this tight. This is a tight movie.
Oh yeah. It must have taken forever because, I read some of the previous drafts, and it was a lot darker than what it is now. It was just really weird, and it was refrigerators, and then just all this weird different stuff before it got to the best version we got now.
Yeah, and I guess we should discuss Eric Stoltz a little bit.
Oh, do we have to?
Just go briefly. We got other things to talk about.
Look, he was famously let go from being Marty McFly.
He's still in the movie a couple of times.
Yeah, I think some of it has been digitally changed because it was more noticed. Because this is the first time I'd seen it streaming. Because before I think they tweaked it for the second DVD release because the first one was an unmitigated disaster.
The 4K is the original, and I still notice Eric Stoltz diving into the car as one of the most notable ones. So it's still there. Maybe for the streaming, who knows?
Okay, because I didn't. It looked a little different.
Yeah.
And then Kristen Glover having a controversy with this movie too, that they didn't pay him for parts that he does in part 2. They just recycled him, and he did get a lawsuit, and that did eventually work itself out. But yeah, there's some interesting back of the scenes stuff to this movie.
Yeah,
but they worked with he worked with Zemeckis later on though, so I guess they patched those feelings up pretty fast.
Well, it was he at the time was saying like he did it because his friend Eric Stoltz was in it, and he wanted to go when he left. He wanted to leave, but then decided he made a deal. What the hell? It's a good script. I'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
So other little things I want to throw out there. There is a character that has 3D glasses on him at all times.
Mm-hmm.
I think his name is X-Ray, if I'm not mistaken.
No, 3D is what he's
3D,
building.
that's right.
And he wears 2 different 3D glasses. He wears an anaglyphic pair, and he wears a polarized pair.
I remember the polarized pair.
Yeah, the easiest way to tell them apart is one says 3D on them and the other one doesn't. On the big screen, it's noticeably because one has dark lenses and the other one has red and blue lenses.
Right, okay.
And obviously, we do not recommend anyone wear 3D glasses outside of the movie they're watching for extended period of time.
No, they won't protect your eyes.
No, they will not. And you cannot stare at an eclipse with them either.
It won't make you Eclipse 3D Man or whatever.
No, it will not. And you'll probably burn your corneas out.
But honestly, though, wearing 3D glasses outside and regular everyday things is not a good idea.
No.
Now, there are eye things, like they used to do for certain stigmatism and stuff, have you wear red and blue glasses.
Huh.
It was a 50s thing.
Maybe that's why he did it. He just couldn't afford the money for the doctor, so he just got a comic book.
Because that's why in Twin Peaks, the doc that's played by Russ Tamblyn has the red and blue glasses on.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. I was wondering about that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
It's something that was debunked by the 70s. That's being of no medical value whatsoever.
Okay. Well, that makes perfect sense for Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm. And that's probably why this guy's wearing them in this.
Okay.
And nobody's making fun of him for doing it.
All right.
I think he was just being kind of cute and like, oh, look at me wearing my 3D glasses everywhere kind of thing. I don't know. Who knows? So there's one part where Doc says he dreams of going into the future, and he says 25 years into the future, which is 2010 at that point. And then he does go actually, 30 years into the future for the sequel, which it was never intended to be a trilogy. Like it was a kind of a. I think people kind of forget about this, but this is kind of a cinematic thing. You guys can verify this. It's meant to have there will be adventures, but you're not going to see it. It's a playful kind of thing that the story is not completely finished, but it's not really meant to be a tease for the next movie. It's never been that way.
Yeah, if it flops, you got one complete movie.
Yeah, franchises weren't really a thing again because Hollywood made lots of franchises until television, and then movies became more one and done. They didn't do serial because television scratched that itch of serial entertainment. But it started changing because Star Wars, there were exceptions. The Planet of the Apes series, James Bond, Star Wars, but this.
But you know what I'm saying? That they never, like, a lot of times movies would have things that, next adventure is coming, but it's not really meant to be a way to get a sequel. It's more just a way to kind of playfully say the adventures continue.
Yeah, like who knows what's going to happen? Should it happen? And it did, and glad for it. But I mean, if it was one and done, it'd be a great film by itself. I mean,
exactly.
So, other things to note. So, they use a DeLorean in this movie, and DeLorean was a very bad car choice because this car gets stalled out so many times.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many electrical problems with those cars, and the hydraulics would freeze up. It was a bad car.
The reason he was using it, story-wise, is because they were practically giving those cars away.
Yes, and the stainless steel construction helped with the flux capacitor, but that was it.
See, I know people that before Back to the Future that actually bought DeLoreans to mess with, because you could get one for under $1,000.
Oh yeah, now they're $50,000 for a used one.
And they're rare or not made up as a Back to the Future car.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to believe that there's some out there that's not Back to the Future.
Exactly. Exactly. Because everybody I know has got one, wound up converting them to a Back to the Future car.
And I can't blame them. I can't blame them one bit.
Yeah, because they can make money.
Yes.
And, the DeLorean, was it really considered that bad of a car? Like, I know it's a plot device, but just like, come on, multiple times it breaks down. It's like, they
were considered a bad car, but that was because DeLorean was considered a bad businessman.
Okay.
Yeah. But like, I know that they had to change the engine out because the original engine was weak and it wouldn't even be able to get up to 88 miles an hour. They had to do so many things, and this still kept on failing because if you notice that he keeps on hitting his head whenever he's driving the DeLorean, those weren't on purpose. Those were accidental because the hydraulics weren't working.
Other things here. Why does Doc have a gigantic speaker in his office?
For Marty to lure him over for his activities.
Well, he did warn him to not mess with it, but
too little, too late.
Yeah.
But that speaker is massive. It's like bigger than a movie speaker would be right now.
Yeah, that's bigger than any watch speaker almost.
Well, speaker technology was a lot bigger. I mean, today you could make a speaker that powerful, probably the size of your fist.
Right.
Does it hold up? Yeah, it holds up a lot. I think it holds up really well.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's perfectly 80s, but it holds up.
Yeah, and the effects hold up too.
Except for the floating hand whenever he's about to disappear. I hated that.
Well, that's an optical effect. It looked like shit then.
And also, whenever Doc is standing in the fire, whenever the DeLorean dissipates and it leaves the fire trail, and Doc turns around and he's clearly in the fire trail, that's also something that I wish they would fix.
Yeah.
So did Doc bribe the cop? Because there's a scene where the cop pulls him over and is like, "So what are you doing here?" And and like
he paid him off.
Yeah, there's a deleted scene that it shows him paying him off with, I think, a couple of 20s, if I'm not mistaken. He's like, "Oh, on your way. Here's your permit."
Yeah, that was just the way things were done. Don't have a permit, you just give them money.
Yeah.
We're not going to get too much into the other movies here, but I do overall really like the universe it created. I like the cartoon. The cartoon was good, and
the video game was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and which one?
The Telltale one, not the NES one.
And it really stood up for the how time travel would work in a movie. How this movie did it, basically, how this franchise set it up became a new norm of time travel. Until eventually Avengers Endgame kind of crapped all over it, but
it's not the first movie to crap all over time travel, believe me.
The thing is, it's all theory. Of course, some guys say the reason 2020 is messed up is because somebody in the future figured out time travel, and that's why 2020 is so messed up.
I think it's just happenstance.
Yeah, I don't think time travel's happened yet in the future.
No.
Our former editor James did have a theory that Trump was a time traveler, so that's
oh God.
So that would explain
the worst time traveler ever.
That would explain a lot, actually.
But he couldn't go back in time and make himself a better businessman. I mean, that's a very shitty theory on his part. No offense, James. I never met you, but damn, that's half cooked at best.
Yeah, and you think he would start taking Rogaine or something if he cares so much about his hair.
Oh yeah, I don't want 3-foot long sideburns combed over. Hell no.
Yeah, exactly.
Doc's death is never bloody. Like, they shoot him up on a machine gun and there's no blood at all.
PG. That's all I can say.
No, I just think that was the clue that we should have known he had a bulletproof vest on.
Or the second time.
But in the second time, but not the first one. They just probably, it's PG. They couldn't show probably any blood besides maybe a nosebleed or something. So who the hell knows?
Actually, in a PG movie, you can actually show a lot of blood.
Even in
1985?
Yes.
Yeah. You could
maybe it's a thematic license.
You could even get away with brief nudity.
Or a head exploding like in the Dan Jones.
Wow.
It was sexuality would get you into more trouble than violence. You got to remember, this is a puritanical America.
Wasn't Airplane PG and it had boobies on like a couple shots and stuff too?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Beetlejuice was a PG and it had the word fuck in it, so that's
and the Andromeda strain is G, and there's several bare breasts in it. And All the President's Men is PG and has an F-bomb.
Yeah, it's just like censors and ratings are weird.
Exactly.
It's weird that we watch this movie on TV and like they're able to not like get all pissy about it being on TV, and they're able to cut out the too perverted stuff, and it's weird. So what would you give this as a score? It's hard to score it because it's one of my favorite movies of all time, but I could still say, even though it's one of my favorites, I would still give it a 9 because there's a lot of little plot holes and stuff, but it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, I'd give it a 9 too, because it's like it's a perfect screenplay, but it's not a perfect movie, but it's pretty damn close. So
I'd have to go full perfect score. It's the perfect movie.
Yeah, that's legit. I mean, I respect that.
Yeah, I
mean, the whole universe is rich with lore, and it's just so much fun, and they're easy to watch. They're the perfect entertainment. It may not be the perfect movie, but it's the perfect entertainment.
They're perfect Hollywood movies.
Yes, I mean they're well constructed. The effects, everything about them, they're amazing.
Yeah, this is what Hollywood is at its best producing.
Oh yeah, great director, great producer, everything. Top notch.
All right, thanks everyone that voted for this movie. We're gonna try again sometime early in 2021. We're gonna give some break to try to get caught up with stuff, but we're gonna try again in first 3 or 4 months of 2021. Now, if you want more Back to the Future talk, we actually did record a Back to the Future Part 2 and 3 movie club, but that is a exclusive to patrons on Patreon. So if you want more, please become our patron for as little as $1 a month or $2 a month if you want more. So with that, we'll wrap up this episode of Movie Club. Thank you all for listening. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Before this podcast wraps up, I want to thank my patrons. Thank you, Kano3D, Mr. Bengal 5, and Kevin Winter for your financial support on Patreon.com. So that's going to be it for this podcast. Thanks for listening. You can find 3D or 2D on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, and more. Just look for 3D or 2D. Links are in the info box. If you want to send us listener mail, our email address is email3dortwo@gmail.com. Thank you for either listening or watching this podcast. Goodbye.
Bye.
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 Bye, everyone.